truth about my wife's secret affair is revealed, and it's more dangerous than you could ever imagine. My name is Martin. I'm 39, a corporate CFO, and I live in a luxury home in Miami with my wife, Eva. Our life on the surface was perfect. We lived in a stunning 5,000 square foot house with a glass-walled pool, a modern kitchen, and impeccable decor. I was everything she wanted in a husband: reliable, competent, and dedicated to providing for our future. Eva, at 45, was the face of the perfume empire we built together. A beauty in her prime, she ran SAA Fragrances with the elegance of someone who had mastered both the business and her own image. But something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. When we first got married, everything was perfect. Eva was beautiful, smart, and successful. We had an instant connection, and I believed she was just as in love with me as I was with her. We worked together too, though she was always in the limelight and I preferred to stay behind the scenes, handling the business side of things. It was a partnership, one I thought was built on trust. But over time, that trust began to erode. At first, it was subtle. Eva, always traveling for work, was distant. She would return home from her tours of Europe and the United States exhausted, but never truly present. Those rare moments when she was home, she would curl up in bed, her eyes distant, lost in her own world. I tried to be understanding, telling myself it was just the stress of her business commitments. But deep down, I knew. I felt the change in her, the way she looked at me with a sense of obligation rather than love. I wasn't blind to the fact that she was still incredibly attractive and that other men admired her. There was always a line of suitors, waiting for a chance to get closer to the queen of the perfume industry. I'd seen the looks they gave her, the quiet conversations she had with them at business events. Then came Braxton. Braxton Perini was young, only 24, and recently hired as a junior accountant at the company. He was sharp, charming, and good-looking, everything I wasn't. Where I was practical, Braxton was charismatic. His tailored suits and easy confidence caught Eva's attention in ways I couldn't compete with. First, I didn't think much of it. I had no reason to suspect anything. But then I noticed something. Eva started spending more time with him. They went out to lunch. They exchanged private emails. And soon, I found myself questioning everything. It wasn't just the time they spent together. It was the way she spoke about him. Eva, who had always been reserved about personal matters, started mentioning Braxton in passing. She would smile when she said his name, and I'd catch her glancing at her phone, her eyes lighting up when she read his texts. My suspicion grew, but I wasn't the type to jump to conclusions without proof. Instead, I took a more calculated approach. I installed cameras around the house. I wanted to know the truth. I set them up in strategic places where I could get clear footage of any potential infidelity. I thought I was being clever, using technology to uncover the truth while keeping it hidden from Eva. After all, she was always so meticulous about her privacy, so I had to be too. But I never anticipated how far she would go to cover her tracks. The cameras were a mistake. Not because I doubted their effectiveness, they were perfect for the job, but because of what they revealed. I had hoped the threat of surveillance would be enough to keep Eva faithful, but instead, it only seemed to make her more cautious. At first, everything appeared normal. The footage showed Eva working, attending meetings, and spending time with me. But then something strange happened. The cameras began malfunctioning. It was subtle at first. A glitch here, a freeze there. But then, one morning, I woke up to find the footage completely gone, replaced by static. My heart sank as I realized what had happened. Eva's security team, always one step ahead, must have found the cameras and disabled them. It was a gut punch. She knew. She knew I was watching her, and instead of confronting me, she did what she always did. She took control of the situation. I couldn't believe how easily she had outsmarted me. That's when I realized I had underestimated Eva. I thought I knew her, thought I understood her, but she was a master of deception. Everything about her had always seemed perfect, her beauty, her grace, her poise, but beneath it all, there was a dark side I hadn't seen before. A side that, like me, was willing to do whatever it took to protect herself. And then there was Braxton. I knew something had to be going on between them, but I had no concrete evidence. Eva was too careful. But my suspicion was only confirmed when she came home from her promotional tour after Thanksgiving. She was exhausted as usual and spent the next 36 hours in bed, barely speaking to me. The moment I saw her, I felt a wave of unease wash over me. Something wasn't right. It was during this time, when Eva was most vulnerable, that I made my move. I had already ordered a second set of cameras. More discreet, more difficult to detect. I wasn't going to let her outsmart me again. I needed to know the truth. I had to. While Eva was sleeping, I installed the new system. This time, there was no mistake. These cameras were top of the line with enhanced audio and video quality. I set them up in every room, hidden in places I knew she wouldn't think to check. The feed went straight to my phone so I could monitor her from anywhere. A few days later, I left for China on business. It was the perfect opportunity to catch her in the act. I wasn't sure if she would actually do anything while I was gone, but I had to know. Eva had always been unpredictable. Would she be faithful, or would she take advantage of my absence to meet with Braxton again? What I didn't know was that she already had plans. I wasn't even in Beijing for 24 hours when I received the alert. The cameras I had so carefully installed were picking up movement in the house. The footage showed Eva, dressed in a sleek, red dress, entering the living room, wine glass in hand, and a confident smile on her face. A glance at the timestamp told me it was just after 7 p.m. Braxton was due any moment. My heart raced as I watched, my mind already leaping to conclusions. This wasn't a business dinner. It wasn't about sales figures or corporate strategy. This was personal. I had known for a long time that Eva's affection for me was fading, but seeing her with him, so comfortable, so familiar, it hurt in a way I couldn't describe. I watched, helpless, as they spoke in low voices, sharing a bottle of wine, their laughter echoing through the empty rooms of our house. There was no denying it now. Eva was having an affair with Braxton. I felt a cold wave of betrayal wash over me. I had suspected it, but seeing it confirmed was a gut punch. The man I had welcomed into our company, trusted to help manage our finances, was now in my own home, sharing intimate moments with my wife. I could hear Eva's voice through the speakers on my phone. She was teasing Braxton, playful and flirtatious. I couldn't make out the words clearly, but I didn't need to. The tone of her voice was enough. She was enjoying herself, enjoying the attention of a younger man, someone who looked at her with the kind of passion I hadn't felt from her in months. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to call her and scream at her, but I couldn't. I was in China, thousands of miles away, watching as my life unraveled. The cameras had been my only way of knowing the truth, but now, they were just a reminder of how much I had failed. I should have seen this coming. I should have trusted my instincts. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that Eva had known all along. She had known I was watching her, and yet, she still invited Braxton over. She was playing a dangerous game, one where she controlled every move. And I was just another pawn in her twisted chess match. It wasn't until I saw the footage of Eva and Braxton's dinner that I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her over the phone from halfway across the world. I wasn't going to let her win by continuing to manipulate the situation. No, I was going to make her feel the weight of her actions. When I returned to Miami 2 weeks later, Eva greeted me at the airport, her smile bright, her arms wrapping around me in an embrace that felt strangely empty. It was the warmest greeting I had gotten from her in months, and I couldn't decide if I should be relieved or suspicious. I knew she was good at pretending, good at playing the role of the perfect wife when she needed to. But I wasn't fooled anymore. The weekend that followed was tense. Eva was eager to reconnect, to make it seem as if everything was back to normal, but I could feel the distance between us. Every time she tried to get close, I pushed her away, not physically, but emotionally. I didn't want her affection. I wanted her to feel the consequences of her betrayal. I spent the weekend reviewing the footage of her and Braxton. Every moment, every glance they exchanged. It sickened me. Yet, a part of me couldn't look away. I was watching the destruction of my marriage, and I couldn't do a damn thing to stop it. But then, as the weekend wore on, I made another decision. I was going to set a trap, one she wouldn't see coming. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative anymore. I would take control of the situation, and I would make her face the truth. I had the security company come in to install a new set of cameras that were even more advanced than before. I wasn't going to let her disable them again. This time, I made sure they were undetectable, hidden in places that Eva's security team would never think to look. By Monday, the trap was in place. Eva had no idea that I had anticipated her every move. She thought she could outsmart me, but she didn't realize how far I was willing to go to catch her in the act. I had everything in place, every move carefully calculated, and now I just had to wait. The plan was simple. Eva would be out of the house for the evening, attending a gala in South Beach. She had been preparing for days, picking out the perfect dress, and rehearsing the speech she would give for the event. She loved being the center of attention, and I was starting to resent how much of herself she gave to the world while leaving little for me. As expected, she left at 6 p.m. sharp, all dressed up and ready to impress. I watched her walk out the door, a mask of confidence on her face, but I could see the subtle hesitation in her steps. Maybe she thought I would finally confront her, or maybe she thought I had given up. Either way, she was leaving me with nothing more than suspicion. The moment she was gone, I set my plan in motion. I knew she wouldn't be back until late, so I had time. I sent a quick message to Braxton. Something simple and to the point. Come over at 8 p.m. I need to talk. I had no intention of talking to him. No, I wanted him to walk into my trap. I wanted him to feel the same helplessness I had felt, to understand that betraying me came with consequences. But I also knew that he would come. Eva had already made it clear that their affair wasn't just physical. It was about power, control, and a shared ambition. Braxton wasn't just after Eva's body. He was after her position, and he was willing to use her to climb higher in the company. At 8 p.m., as I sat in the shadows of our living room, I watched the cameras closely. The doorbell rang, and there he was, Braxton, looking every bit the young, confident man who had seduced my wife. I could feel a surge of anger, but I kept it under control. This wasn't about emotions anymore. It was about watching him walk into the trap I had set. He rang the doorbell again, a little impatient this time, and I heard the faint click of the lock as Eva's security system recognized his presence. The cameras were still recording, and the feed was being transmitted directly to my phone. I watched as he stepped inside, greeted by the sound of Eva's voice from the kitchen. "Braxton," she said, her tone light and playful. "I'm so glad you could make it. Let's have a drink first before we talk business." I could see him smile as he entered the living room. I knew how this scene would unfold. Eva, always the charming host, would play her part perfectly. But in the back of my mind, I knew it was just a matter of time before everything came crashing down. They chatted for a while, sipping wine, exchanging pleasantries as if everything was normal. But it wasn't normal. Not for me and certainly not for them. As I watched them, I realized how little I truly knew about Eva anymore. She had become a stranger to me, someone I no longer recognized, and Braxton wasn't helping matters. Then it happened. As they finished their glasses of wine, Eva leaned in and whispered something I couldn't hear. Braxton, with that same cocky grin, leaned back and replied with a smile that spoke volumes. His eyes were filled with arrogance, as if he knew exactly what was going to happen next. The tension in the room grew. I could see the subtle shifts in their body language. They weren't just talking about business anymore. The flirtation was palpable, and I could almost feel the heat between them from where I was sitting. Eva stood up, her heels clicking on the marble floors as she walked over to Braxton. Without a word, she took his hand and led him down the hallway toward our bedroom. I could feel my pulse quicken as they disappeared from view, but I didn't move. I just watched, and that's when it hit me. I had never fully realized how deeply Eva was entwined with her own image, how far she was willing to go to maintain control. She wasn't just using Braxton for sex. She was using him to affirm her own power, to remind herself that she could have anything she wanted, no matter the cost. I could only watch helplessly as they entered the bedroom. I stared at the screen, my eyes glued to the footage. The sight of Braxton stepping into my bedroom was more than just a betrayal. It was the death of everything I had believed in. Eva had been my partner, my confidant, the woman I trusted more than anyone in this world. And now, in one swift motion, she was shattering that trust beyond repair. I didn't want to watch them, but I couldn't look away. I was captivated by the way Eva moved, the way she commanded attention in everything she did. She was a woman who knew her power, and she used it to manipulate everyone around her, including me. As they entered the bedroom, the camera caught the subtle gestures that spoke volumes. Eva, with her seductive grace, led Braxton to the bed. She was always in control, always orchestrating the situation. My heart raced, but not with the passion I once felt for her. No, now it was pure fury, mixed with a bitter sense of loss. The evening that unfolded was everything I had feared and more. I could see the way they interacted, Eva always the dominant one, while Braxton followed her lead, eager to please. I wanted to turn the cameras off to erase the evidence, but I couldn't. I had come this far and I had to see it through. I needed to know everything. It was painful to watch, but it was necessary. I had to see her vulnerability, her complete disregard for me. The way she whispered in Braxton's ear, the way he responded, telling her how much he wanted her. It all made my stomach turn, but it also gave me the clarity I needed. Eva wasn't just seeking physical pleasure. She was seeking power. And Braxton, foolish as he was nothing but a pawn in her game. As they continued, my mind raced. What was I going to do about this? How could I confront Eva? How could I possibly go back to the woman I once loved, knowing what she had done? There was no fixing this. She had crossed a line, and I was done pretending it didn't exist. After what felt like hours, the footage finally stopped. Braxton left, just as silently as he had entered. Eva remained in the bed, her eyes closed, seemingly satisfied with herself. I couldn't help but feel a cold wave of disgust wash over me as I watched her sleep so peacefully, so unaware of the storm that was about to hit. I wanted to confront her, to shout at her, to make her feel the same pain I was feeling. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. Eva didn't care about my pain. She never had. She was too caught up in her own self-image to notice the damage she was causing. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to keep living in this lie. I would leave. But not immediately. No, I would wait. I would wait for the perfect moment to expose her, to show her how foolish she was for thinking she could get away with it. I would play my cards carefully. I would let her believe everything was normal, let her think she was still in control. But I wasn't going to let her have the last word. The days following that night were unbearable. Eva acted as if nothing had happened, like nothing had changed between us. Her carefully crafted facade of normalcy fooled no one, least of all me. She made her usual attempts to be affectionate, to show me that everything was fine, but I wasn't buying it anymore. Each kiss felt empty, every touch just a hollow reminder of what she had done. I spent my days at the office, busying myself with work as a way to escape the suffocating presence of my own home. But there was no escaping the truth. It was always there, hanging over me like a cloud I couldn't escape from. As the days wore on, I became more calculated, more deliberate in my actions. I watched her, studied her movements, listened to her words carefully. I began to piece together the truth, bit by bit, confirming what I had already known deep down. Eva was not the woman I thought she was. She was a master of manipulation, and I had been her biggest fool. But I wasn't going to be fooled anymore. I planned my next move carefully. I couldn't confront her just yet. I needed proof, something concrete that would force her to face the consequences of her actions. I had learned from my previous mistakes. I knew how to outsmart her now. Eva's business trip to Paris came up suddenly. She had to attend a fragrance expo, and she left the house early in the morning, looking as flawless as ever. I pretended to be the loving husband, wishing her well and reminding her to be safe. But inside, I was already making my plans. I had one chance to confront her, and I wasn't going to waste it. The moment she left, I set my plan in motion. I had already installed a hidden camera in her office, just in case. I wasn't sure what I would find, but I knew it was better to be prepared than to trust her again. The footage was being transmitted to my phone, but I wouldn't check it until the right time. I spent the day in a haze, pacing the house, contemplating what I was about to do. I felt a strange mix of anticipation and dread. Was I ready for this? Was I ready to tear apart the life I had worked so hard to build? But I had to know. I had to face the truth, even if it meant losing everything. The evening came and I still hadn't checked the camera. I couldn't bring myself to do it. But as I walked through the living room, I saw something on the coffee table. A note. It was simple, written in Eva's elegant handwriting. I hope you're not too angry. I'm sorry, but I can't keep pretending. Let's talk when I get back. I need you to understand. I froze. The note felt like a slap in the face. Eva, the woman who had shattered my trust, was trying to act like this was some misunderstanding. She was asking for forgiveness, asking me to understand. I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up my phone and pulled up the footage. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew I would find something. The first few minutes of the footage were boring. Eva had been in her office, organizing papers, making phone calls, and then she paused. She looked at the door, glanced around, and then her assistant, Gina, walked in. Gina had been working with Eva for years. She was always loyal, always present. But something about the way Gina looked at Eva in this footage struck me as off. She looked uncomfortable, almost nervous, as if she knew something was about to happen. Eva, ever the charming hostess, smiled at Gina and offered her a seat. Sit down, Gina. I need to talk to you about something, Eva said, her voice soft but commanding. Gina sat, and I could see the tension between them, like a crackling current in the air. I leaned in, my heart pounding as I listened to the conversation. I can't keep doing this, Eva said. Martin's becoming suspicious. I'm trying to make him believe everything is fine, but it's becoming harder to hide. Braxton, he's making it worse. He's demanding more, and I can't keep lying to Martin. Gina's face softened. Eva, I'm not sure I can keep helping you with this, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. What do you mean? Eva asked, her tone sharp. I mean, this is wrong. I know you're my boss, but what you're doing to Martin isn't right, Gina said, her words filled with a quiet but undeniable sense of moral clarity. Eva's expression hardened. Gina, you've worked for me for years. You know better than anyone how much is at stake. I'm doing what I need to do to survive. Martin doesn't understand me anymore. He's distant, cold. He doesn't deserve me. Eva, I've always respected you, but this isn't just about survival. You're ruining someone who trusts you, someone who's dedicated his life to you, and I won't be part of that anymore. The conversation ended abruptly. Eva stood up, and Gina left the room, visibly shaken. I sat there, staring at the screen, my hands shaking. The realization hit me like a freight train. Gina had known. She had known all along, and she had tried to warn me. But I had been too blind, too caught up in my own anger and hurt to see it. Eva wasn't just betraying me with Braxton. She was betraying me with everyone who supported her, everyone who worked for her. She had used her power to manipulate everyone around her, even Gina. But Gina had had enough. It was time to confront her. It was time. The weight of the truth had been slowly crushing me, and now that I knew everything, I couldn't hide from it anymore. Eva had crossed the line not just once but repeatedly. She had betrayed me in the most intimate, most public ways, and she hadn't shown the slightest remorse. I knew I wasn't going to get the closure I wanted from her. She would never admit to anything, but I couldn't allow her to continue living this lie. I waited for Eva to return from Paris. The hours dragged on like days. I could barely focus on anything. Every thought, every breath, seemed consumed by what was to come. The plan was simple. When she came home, I would confront her with everything I knew. Everything I had seen on the cameras, everything I had heard, every lie she had told. When Eva finally walked through the door late that evening, looking glamorous as always, I was waiting. I had already poured myself a drink, my hand trembling slightly as I held the glass. I didn't know what I was going to say to her, but I knew I had to make it count. Martin? She asked, her voice sweet, almost too sweet. You're still up? I thought you'd be in bed by now. I stood up, my back straight, trying to keep my composure. We need to talk. Her smile faltered for a split second. It was enough for me to notice. I knew then that she wasn't as calm as she appeared. She had sensed something was off. But she still tried to play it cool, her eyes darting nervously to the wine glass in my hand. She wasn't fooling me anymore. She sat down on the couch, crossing her legs, smoothing out her dress. What's this about? She asked, a touch of concern in her voice now. I didn't answer her immediately. Couldn't. My heart was racing, and my thoughts were jumbled. But one thing was clear. I couldn't let her manipulate me any longer. Do you think I'm blind, Eva? I said, my voice low, controlled. Do you think I don't see what's been going on? She froze, her eyes locking onto mine. For a moment, I thought she might try to deny it. She always did, after all. But she didn't. Instead, a flicker of something, guilt, fear, passed through her eyes, quickly masked by the mask of indifference she had worn for so long. I don't know what you mean, she said, her voice shaking slightly, though she tried to sound confident. I've been busy. You know how it is. The company, the tours, everything. I leaned forward, placing my drink on the coffee table with a deliberate motion. Don't lie to me, I said, my voice firm. I know about Braxton. I know about the dinners. I know what's been happening when I'm not around. Her face paled. The air between us grew thick with tension, and I could see the gears turning in her mind as she tried to come up with a response. But there was no more time for lies. You don't get to play the victim here, Eva, I continued. You've been using me, lying to me, and for what? A fling? Power? What's the point of all this? You're not the woman I married. You're not even the woman I thought you were. Her jaw tightened, her hands clenching into fists. At her sides. I never asked for this, Martin. I never asked for you to spy on me. This is your fault too, you know. You've changed. You've become distant. You don't understand me. I needed something more, and Braxton was there for me. More, I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. You needed more? You've been living a lie for months, and you think it's my fault? You think I pushed you to this? Eva stood up suddenly, her hands waving in frustration. Yes, I do. You've become so obsessed with the business, with numbers, with everything except me. I'm not just some trophy wife you can forget about when it's convenient. I have needs too, Martin. Her words stung more than I cared to admit. It wasn't the accusation that hurt. It was the way she saw me, as a mere bystander in her life. She had reduced our entire marriage to nothing more than a contract, something to keep up appearances. No, Eva, I said, standing up to face her. You don't get to blame me for this. You chose to do this. You chose to betray me, to use someone else to fulfill your desires. And now you want me to fix it, to make everything okay again? It's too late for that. She seemed to shrink in front of me, the fire that had once defined her flickering out. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost felt like I could give her another chance. But then I remembered what she had done to me, to us. I don't want this life anymore, Eva, I said, my voice steady. I'm done. She looked at me, her face a mixture of frustration and something else. Fear, perhaps, but it was too late for second chances. There was no going back. I had thought I was prepared for the fallout, but nothing could have truly prepared me for the silence that followed my words. Eva stood there, her eyes wide with disbelief, as if she had expected me to say something else, anything else. The years we had spent together, building a life, a company, a marriage. Now it all seemed like a distant memory, as fragile as glass, shattering under the weight of her betrayal. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She wasn't angry, as I had expected. There were no excuses, no defenses, just an overwhelming silence that hung between us like an impenetrable wall. I watched her, feeling nothing but a deep emptiness inside. I had loved her once, but that love had been eroded by her actions, her lies, and her deceit. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone willing to sacrifice everything for her own selfish desires. Martin, she finally whispered, her voice small, fragile. Please don't do this. We can fix this. We can talk, we can figure this out. No, I said firmly, the finality of my words cutting through the air. There's nothing left to fix, Eva. You've made your choices, and now I have to make mine. Her face crumpled, and for the first time in months, I saw a flicker of vulnerability, something raw and real beneath her carefully constructed mask. I didn't feel sorry for her. Couldn't. This was the woman who had betrayed me, who had broken the vows we had made to each other. She had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I don't want to live this lie anymore, I continued. I don't want to pretend that everything's fine when it's not. Seen everything, Eva. The cameras, the lies, the affair with Braxton. I've watched it all. And I'm done. She stumbled back, her hand gripping the edge of the counter for support. You were watching me? she asked, her voice trembling. You installed cameras in the house? You've been spying on me? I didn't want to, I said, my tone unwavering. But you left me no choice. You kept lying to me, and I couldn't trust you anymore. You think I wanted to be this person. You think I wanted to turn into someone who spies on his wife.
No, Eva.
You made me do this. You forced me into this position. I could see the anger rising in her now, but it wasn't directed at me. It was directed at herself. She had been caught, and for the first time in a long while, she didn't have control over the situation. You're just going to throw everything away? She spat, her eyes narrowing. Our marriage, our company, everything we've built? For what? Because I had an affair? You're going to destroy everything over one mistake. It wasn't just one mistake, Eva, I said, shaking my head. It was a choice. Over and over again, you chose to betray me. And now you expect me to forgive you? To forget? Her shoulders slumped, and she seemed to shrink in front of me. The confident, untouchable woman I had once admired now looked small, broken, and defeated. I didn't feel satisfaction or relief. I felt nothing at all. I don't want to destroy anything, Eva, I said quietly. But you've left me no choice. I'm not staying in this marriage anymore. It's over. Her face twisted with emotion. Please don't leave me, she pleaded, her voice cracking. I love you, Martin. I never meant to hurt you, but I knew better than to believe her now. The love she spoke of was a lie, a mask she had worn to cover up her true intentions. She had used me, manipulated me, and now she was asking for forgiveness as though nothing had changed. I don't believe you anymore, Eva, I said, turning away from her. I can't keep living like this. The room was silent again, but this time, it felt suffocating, like the calm before a storm. Eva didn't move. She didn't try to stop me. She just stood there, frozen in place, staring at me as if she couldn't quite comprehend what was happening. I'm leaving, I said, my voice steady. You can keep everything. The house, the business, all of it. I don't care anymore. I'll handle the legal stuff. Just don't try to stop me. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair and walked toward the door. As I opened it, I paused for a moment, glancing back at Eva. For a brief second, I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman I had once believed was my partner in every sense of the word. But that woman was gone. I stepped outside, and as the door closed behind me, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. I had made my choice. I had finally taken control of my life again, and I wasn't going to let her or anyone else take that from me. I thought I was free. I thought I had finally severed the ties that bound me to Eva, the woman who had betrayed me in the worst way possible. The woman I had loved, who had deceived me for so long. I thought that walking away from our marriage, from the company, from everything we had built together, was the beginning of something new, something better. But life had other plans. I left the house that night, leaving Eva behind with nothing more than her shattered pride. The sound of the door closing behind me felt final, almost satisfying. But as I drove through the empty streets of Miami, a nagging feeling began to settle in the pit of my stomach. Was it guilt? Regret? No, it wasn't that. It was something else. It was the nagging feeling that there was more to the story than I could see, that there were still pieces I hadn't uncovered. The truth, I realized, was never as simple as it seemed. I had made my escape. I checked into a hotel, started making plans for my future. It was going to take time, but I was prepared for it. I had money, resources, and connections. I was determined to rebuild my life, one that didn't revolve around Eva. The days passed in a blur. I spoke with lawyers, sorted through finances, and slowly began to let go of the past. But then Just as I thought I could move forward, I received a call that changed everything. It was Gina, Eva's longtime assistant. "Martin, we need to talk," she said, her voice tense. "It's urgent." I froze, gripping the phone tighter. What could she possibly want? Did she know about the cameras? Did she know that I had already figured out everything that had been going on? "I'm listening," I said, my voice guarded. "I know you're angry, but you need to hear me out," Gina said quickly, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Eva, she's in danger. You need to come back. Now." I was stunned. "What do you mean, in danger? What's going on, Gina?" "She's gone," Gina replied, her voice trembling. "She's disappeared. I've tried calling her, but she's not answering. No one's heard from her in days. She's gone off the grid, and I don't know where she is." I felt my heart skip a beat. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Eva, the woman who had spent years controlling everything, now missing? It didn't make sense. "What are you talking about?" I demanded. "This is ridiculous. She's probably just off somewhere, doing who knows what."
No, Martín.
"It's not like that. Something happened. Something I think you need to know. I've been getting strange messages, threatening messages. I think someone's after her." The words hung in the air like a weight. I felt a surge of something, fear, maybe anger. But it wasn't for Eva. It was for the idea that someone could be threatening her after everything she had done to me. She had made her choices, but no one deserved to be put in harm's way. "Where is she now?" I asked, my voice softening despite myself. "I don't know. I've tried to track her, but it's like she's disappeared off the face of the earth," Gina said.
I'm scared, Martin.
"I think she's in real trouble, and I don't know who to trust anymore." There was a long pause on the line. I could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on me. I had spent so long running from Eva, trying to escape the woman who had once been everything to me. But now, for reasons I couldn't fully explain, I was drawn back into her world. "I'll be there in an hour," I said, making the decision on the spot. There was no more thinking about it, no more hesitation. I arrived at the office building where Eva's company was based, my mind racing with questions. Gina was waiting for me in the lobby, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, her voice shaking. I didn't know who else to turn to. I've looked everywhere. Her office, the house. There's nothing. She's just gone. I nodded grimly, trying to push down the rush of emotions that threatened to rise. Despite everything, I couldn't just leave her to whatever was happening. Eva might have been a liar, a cheat, but she was still part of my life. And I wasn't about to let something terrible happen to her, not without knowing the full truth. As Gina and I entered Eva's office, I couldn't shake the sense that I was walking into a trap. The lights were dimmed, and there was an odd stillness in the air, as if everything had been abandoned in a hurry. I walked over to her desk, trying to steady my breath, when I noticed a strange envelope sitting there. It was marked with a single ominous word, and quote, "Tomorrow," and quote. I picked it up, my hands trembling slightly. Inside was a single sheet of paper, scrawled with a message that made my blood run cold. "You thought you could escape. You should have never left. The game isn't over. It's only just begun." At the bottom of the page was a symbol, a black, jagged circle, something I didn't recognize. Suddenly, everything clicked. The strange messages Gina had mentioned, Eva's disappearance. It wasn't just about an affair or a broken marriage. There was something deeper going on here, something dark and dangerous. I looked at Gina, my mind racing. This is more than just her running away. Someone is behind this, and I'm going to find out who. But as I turned to leave the office, something stopped me. a figure in the doorway. Braxton. I stared at him wide-eyed as he smirked, leaning against the doorframe. Did you think you could just walk away, Martin? Did you think this was over? I felt my pulse quicken. End quote. What are you doing here? End quote. I demanded, my voice low, threatening. I think you'll find the answers you're looking for, Braxton said, his grin widening. And this time, they won't come from Eva.